Welcome back to NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. We're devoting this hour to a very important issue, parasite control and solutions to the problem. Dr. Woodruff, we're approaching a time, at least, when lice can be a real problem, especially for some of us up north here. What are the conditions that cause lice to be a problem in an or in an operation, and what would you recommend?
Well, the problem with louse populations is that they obviously increase during the colder weather, and they seem to multiply best when the weather conditions are the most severe in winter. The colder temperatures, the shorter day length, cloudier weather seems to be attributed to increase in the louse population. So that gets to be a pretty significant problem, especially when we have really severe winters, and last year was one of those really tough winters. Louse problems were more severe.
Dr. Navarre, what about parasite problems specific to the Gulf Coast area?
Well, one of the things that we have to deal with in the Gulf Coast that not all areas have to deal with is the liver fluke. And so one of the recipes that we have for treating cattle that's actually pretty consistent across herds is actually treating for flukes. And mostly we recommend that we do that in the fall. The transmission for the flukes is in the late spring when it's warm and wet, and then they mature through the summer. And our products that are effective against flukes are only effective against the adults. So we need to wait. We can't treat as soon as they get them. We have to wait for them to become adults. Unfortunately, they cause a lot of problems in the meantime. And so what we're trying to do is treat those flukes in the fall so that we have less contamination for the next spring. So that's one of the things we have to deal with in the Gulf Coast.
Gotcha. And Dr. Wade, how would those recommendations differ from places like the Mid-Atlantic area and even the upper Midwest?
We're blessed in the Southeast because we really don't see the liver fluke issues that they see in that part of the country. Lice is still a real problem in our part of the country as well. But the biggest problem we have with the lice is timing of treatment, because we know that we see our lice issues usually around February and March is when it's really going to peak out. And if we use a pretty good product, macrocyclic lactone, that can do a very good job of controlling some of those lice up front, sometimes that's still not good enough, and we have to go with a lice-specific product to try to control it overall.
Dr. Navarre, I mean, we've explained in this show the differences that occur from a region-to-region basis. How does a producer sort through all the product information and promotional information to figure out what's right for us as individual producers?
It can be very difficult, even for veterinarians, but one of the things you do need to do is get with a veterinarian who can tell you what's a generic product, what's not a generic product, what are different products. If you do need to rotate to another product, which product that is. Sometimes producers think they're rotating to a different class, but they're really not. They're just doing a different brand. So it can be very difficult. You need some help to time it. You need some help to pick a product. It's not just, picking a convenient time anymore. There needs to be a lot of thought going into it, and then it may change from year to year on a particular producer's operation. If it, with rainfall, with temperatures, grazing management, if fertilizer prices get high and we don't plant ryegrass, that changes your whole management and changes parasite control. So it's a dynamic process.
Dr. Janswinski, what would you recommend producers consider as they lay out all the options and try to make a decision that's best for them?
Well, I've kind of already gone through the framework of the appropriate fecal egg count reduction test. You want to see if the product that you want to use will work on your operation. You want to strategically place that treatment at your operation where it most effectively controls the worm, spring and fall treatment. You don't want to treat in the middle of summer and middle of winter. And that might be a little bit of a contradiction or disagreement with what may have been spoken already. I wish we would just use our endectocides, our macrocyclic lactones, and other dewormers for worms. I mean, there's too much at risk. That's all we're going to have for the next 5 or 10 years. Let's not be using our pour-on endectocides, Cydectin, Ivomect, Doramectin, for louse control. I think there's other products out there that can do it. When you overuse a medication, well, when you use it correctly, you're selecting for resistance, and when you overuse it, you're exponentiating more yet the amount of resistance you're going to get. So just target worm control with worm products. A couple other things. Dr. Navarre said that she's got flukes in Louisiana, and basically along the Gulf Coast. That's where Texas, Louisiana, and the other Gulf Coast states. We also have flukes in our cattle in the northwestern United States, a consideration there. And there's also a pocket of flukes around Minnesota, the Great Lakes area. So there's considerations there. And hopefully the people that grow cattle in those areas, they know if they got flukes or not, and strategically use a flukicide when it's most effective for the adults. The other thing I'd like to interject before I forget is that we talked about that brown stomach worm, Ostatigia. That worm is the most important worm we got in the United States. And thankfully, even though there's been reports of some resistance in the dewormers against Ostatigia, it still looks like it's being controlled by the products we have out there that have it somewhat on the label. But that inhibited Ostatigia, that brown stomach worm, inhibits in the southeast United States all summer long. So white dewormers, drenches will not work against it. But you shouldn't be using a dewormer then anyways, unless you're in the stocker operation. That same worm, a different strain of that worm, inhibits in the northern part of the United States all winter. So the white dewormers won't work up there for that particular worm. But spring and fall, regardless of where you are in the United States, that worm is active as adults, easily killed with whatever product is out there.
That's great insight. Dr. Woodruff, I guess one of the questions, are there situations when a pour-on works better than an injectable, or an injectable is a better choice than a pour-on? What would you tell us there?
Well, there are advantages to both formulations of those dewormer compounds. The pour-ons have an ease of administration that a lot of producers like, and some people like to use that for external parasite control, and as Dr. Yezwinski has mentioned, that may not be the best use for those products. The injectable formulations are considered to be more efficacious against the internal parasites. And if we're targeting our control against the internal specifically, the injectable formulations are a real great choice.